The cotton clothing, sheets, and so forth that are so commonplace today were not widely available until after a revolution took place in the way cloth was made. This industrial revolution resulted in the rise of big textile factories and was coupled with a significant increase in the number of slave plantations on which cotton was raised. The changes in cloth making can be traced back to the invention of three important new machines during the last half of the 18th century. The first inventions replaced the spinners, who used spinning wheels to make the thread used for weaving. These devices were water-powered spinning machines like this one that were capable of rapidly spinning multiple spools of thread from raw fibers. The second invention replaced the weavers who wove thread into cloth on hand looms. These machines were water-powered looms, like the one seen here, that could manufacture rolls of cloth at a high rate of speed. The third invention, called the cotton gin, is what really turned the raising of cotton into a major business. Cotton possesses excellent fibers for cloth making, but they are full of seeds when picked from the plant. Before the invention of the cotton gin, the seeds had to be removed slowly by hand before the fibers could be spun into thread. But using a cotton gin, one person turning a crank could remove as many seeds from raw cotton in a single day as 50 people working by hand. Soon water-powered cotton gins came along that removed seeds even faster. After the new textile machines came into widespread use, cotton consumption increased dramatically in the United States. Cotton even became America's main export as well. And it is amazing to think that a product of such great importance to the nation was produced almost entirely by slave labor.
Another economic issue was slavery. Slaves are people who are owned by other people and are forced to do work for them without pay. The South, with its large plantations, had become dependent on the free labor of African slaves. This slave labor allowed some Southern plantation owners to become quite wealthy. The slaves worked the fields and performed household chores. Others learned trades and were hired out, their earnings going to their owners. Many people in the North believed that slavery was wrong. They were working to stop the spread of slavery or abolish it completely.
It was the development of free labor in the North and slave labor in the South that continually drove a wedge through the United States. In 1820, war over the labor issue was averted by the Missouri Compromise. Under its terms, Missouri was allowed to enter the Union as a slave state, and Maine was admitted as a free state. The Missouri Compromise only solved the problem temporarily, for again in 1850, emotions over the slavery issue reached a fever pitch. Another settlement, called the Compromise of 1850, averted a civil war. The Compromise of 1850 admitted California as a free state. Utah and New Mexico territories were allowed to vote on whether slavery should be allowed in their areas. This resulted in the majority of the Senate voting power to now be in the hands of the free states. To correct some of this imbalance, the Fugitive Slave Law was also passed. It stated that law officials were responsible to catch runaway slaves and return them to their owners. Many Northerners refused to obey this law, and in fact, some helped many slaves escape through the secret network called the Underground Railroad. Emotions on both sides of the slavery issue once again rose in 1854, when a bill called the Kansas-Nebraska Act passed Congress. This bill repealed the Missouri Compromise and allowed residents of Kansas and Nebraska to decide for themselves whether or not slavery would be allowed in their states. The result of this unfortunate law was that settlers who strongly favored slavery and settlers who hated slavery both immigrated to Kansas. When these groups came into contact with each other, much fighting and killing resulted. Kansas was often referred to as Bleeding Kansas.